it was very gratifying to see that one of our students, who was a 1L when we first initiated these non-credit offerings, found some of these experiences to be so beneficial that she decided to start a new student organization called the Vanderbilt Law Student Health and Wellness Association. And the last year was the first year that organization was begun, and they actually did a lot of wonderful programming. And what was exciting to me is that, you know, some of the things that I had previously tried to do hadn't been that successful because there wasn't that much student interest. But when the students are pitching the idea and finding it to be important and resonate with their colleagues, then these kinds of programs can be much more successful. So, for example, we had programs on substance abuse previously that I had every year since I started. I would have the Tennessee Lawyers Assistance Program come in and do some programs on substance abuse. And that was actually then evolved into a Substance Abuse Awareness Week that was sponsored by VSHWA, which is the acronym for the student organization. And it was really great because TLAP still came in and was involved, but they had a number of different programs during the week, a lot of substantive programming, and as well as kind of mentoring of the 1L students by the upper class students, because this was especially during the first semester when the 1L students are still getting adjusted. And then VSHWA also sponsored Stress Free Week, which had been done the previous year, but this was even expanded. And they had a lot of different programs again through that week, but it was scheduled so that it would fall at the time that students would receive their grades from the fall semester. So these were the first set of grades that the 1L students were going to get, and those are always a crushing blow to the majority of the students. So it was really great because they had one program where some professors were actually talking about grades and reminding them about the grade distributions and how the elite students are the ones who were in law school to begin with, and then of those students a curve has to occur just to differentiate students from one another. And it doesn't mean that anything has changed. They're still the incredibly intelligent, talented, and motivated people they've always been, and that's why they are here to begin with. And having those grades changes nothing. It's just a way to somewhat differentiate them. And then some of the other upper class students would talk about how even though they weren't in the top 10%, they were able to be successful and got these really interesting jobs, and kind of demystify the whole situation for the students who would then receive their grades later on. And then they also did, we had sponsored a school-wide mindfulness meditation class if people wanted to attend that during that week, and ended up with a social gathering where everybody could kind of get together and talk about it. So that was a really great week. And then they also sponsored Eating Disorders Awareness Week, and there was a panel discussion about that to try to educate people about that, because it's not something that people talk about very much, and yet it's rampant in stressful professional schools, especially like law school. And they had some professionals come in and talk about it as well, and the students were able to ask questions. So that was really good, and also kind of inform people and also try to destigmatize it a little bit, so people would feel more comfortable talking about it. And then the one other thing that they've incorporated a mentoring program, and then also just a lot of social activities like kickball tournaments during orientation, and kind of social but healthy activities, not things that just focus on drinking alcohol, but sports related or just pleasure driven in a way that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to compete in the same way that they may feel they compete in the classroom. we have a group called the Ambassadors, which is a great group of students, and they actually created a mentoring program. We've been trying to work on that for quite a number of years, because it used to be that the mentors would introduce themselves and they'd say, just call me if you need me. And then finally I said, look, these 1L students are not going to call you. They're stressed out, they are feeling, inadequate. You need to reach out to them. And so we had a training session for the mentors to kind of remind them that, think about what it was like when you were a 1L, and remember how comfortable or uncomfortable you might have been saying to somebody, I need help. And instead, think about reaching out to these people at designated times. And so we had kind of like a timeline where there would be the stressful points for 1Ls, like the first time a legal writing assignment was due. The mentors were asked to contact their mentee and just touch base with them, make sure that they felt okay, take them out to coffee, or just to provide them with an opportunity to talk about some of these first-time experiences. So that worked very effectively because the mentors were reaching out to the mentees and providing support even without being asked. So I think that's really helped a lot too. It's been a wonderful gift to me to be able to work with the students, because I've been constantly reminded of what my experiences have been, and I've also been able to benefit from learning about some of these new things. So even though the law school where I went was a kinder, gentler law school too, it only had 160 students in my class, and they were on the 440 plan, so the largest class had 40 students in it. I still just felt all of this stress and, as I mentioned, the competitive vortex that I barely was able to escape. But so I remember vividly what the experience was like, and so I empathize with them a lot. And I've been grateful that I've been able to see how some of these strategies help firsthand, and they certainly have helped me too. Because before we started doing the supported practices, I had started doing some of the mindfulness on my own, and actually had an experience where that to me can only be explained by the fact that I had been doing this mindfulness meditation. So usually I'm like this really big worrier, and I get anxious in traffic. So I was driving to Memphis for Christmas one year, which is where my mother was going to be and my sister lives. And so I was on this 4-lane highway, and it's a beautiful day, but I'm in the left lane, and all of a sudden the traffic comes to a halt, and everybody's stopped. It's like a parking lot. And I said to myself, oh, gee, I was thinking about turning my car off, and I thought, no, wouldn't it be awful if I turned my car off and it wouldn't start? Nah, that won't happen. And so I turned my car off like a lot of other people did. And then when I tried to turn the car back on, it wouldn't start. So I'm in the left lane, and then all the traffic's starting up again. And instead of going ballistic and really totally panicking like I normally would do, I was able to deal with it, and I didn't get all, anxious and upset about it. And the only thing that I can really attribute it to is the fact that I had been doing this mindfulness meditation, because that was the only thing that had really changed over time. And so for me, that was a firsthand, demonstration that this can work. I don't know how it works or why it works. My feeling is if it's been demonstrated to be effective, then it's worth a try. And why wouldn't we want to offer to our students some of these resources if it can help them feel better?